So imagine you're traveling, right? You've just checked into this strange hotel room in a city you've never visited.
Oh, I know that exact feeling.
Yeah, you're exhausted, you fall asleep, and then you wake up in the pitch dark in the middle of the night needing to find the bathroom.
And you just have absolutely no idea where you are.
Exactly. For those first few agonizing seconds, your brain just misfires. You have no idea where the light switch is, you can't feel the edge of the nightstand, you don't even know which direction the door is facing.
It's completely terrifying.
It really is. You experience this sudden, distinct spike of absolute panic and like complete disorientation. Your heart beats faster, your breathing gets shallow, and your mind just races until you finally fumble around and figure it out.
Right, until you finally find the lamp.
Yeah. Now imagine that exact feeling of welcome to today's deep dive. If you are tuning in right now, it's because you are what we like to call the learner. You're someone looking to gain knowledge quickly but thoroughly.
You want multiple perspectives.
Mhm.
You want the underlying mechanics of how things work.
Right. And you want those real aha moments without drowning in information overload. So our mission today is to explore the mechanics and the psychology of specialized in-home memory care. We are looking at an organization called Care and Comfort, LLC.
Based right in San Jose, California.
Exactly. And they focus specifically on Alzheimer's and dementia care services. And just to be clear, we are not using this as a promotional piece, but rather we're treating their highly specific care model as a real-world blueprint.
Yeah, to understand the modern approach to cognitive decline. Because it serves as a really fascinating case study.
It really does.
I mean, for decades, the default assumption for advanced memory care was institutionalization.
Yeah.
You built a specialized facility, and you moved the patient into it.
Right, you pack up their life.
Exactly. But this source material completely flips that script.
Hmm.
They're attempting to bring the infrastructure of a memory ward directly into a patient's living room.
And the driving force behind that flipped script goes right back to that pitch-dark hotel room we just talked about. The source explicitly notes that transitioning someone with Alzheimer's or dementia to an unfamiliar environment actively increases their confusion and anxiety.
Which makes perfect sense when you think about it.
Right. They argue the primary benefit of in-home care is simply reducing disorientation by keeping the person in a setting they already know.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it fundamentally changes how we view the concept of a home.
How so?
Well, in the context of dementia, the physical house is not just, a sentimental space filled with old photographs and memories. It acts as a highly functional, structural tool for medical care.
Wait, a structural tool? You mean because the layout of their house is essentially hardwired into their brain so they don't have to actively think about how to navigate it?
Precisely. Neurologists differentiate between active memory, like remembering what you had for breakfast,
Right.
and procedural or passive memory. When the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for forming new memories, begins to fail due to dementia, individuals rely heavily on ingrained procedural memory.
Which is managed by older parts of the brain, right?
Exactly. The physical environment acts as an external hard drive for their failing mind. They subconsciously know exactly how many steps it takes to get from their favorite armchair to the kitchen sink.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they recognize the specific creak of their own hallway floorboards. The ambient noises of their own neighborhood street are processed as safe and normal.
So the environment itself is providing passive memory support.
Yes, creating a grounding mechanism that naturally lowers their cortisol levels and anxiety.
So when you pull them out of that environment and place them in a facility, even if it is a beautifully manicured state-of-the-art campus, you're basically stripping away their environmental exoskeleton.
That's a great way to put it. You force a compromised brain to try and map an entirely new physical world.
Which is an impossible task for a brain losing its mapping function. It induces that constant lingering panic you described, the unfamiliar shadows, the strange hallway sounds, the different texture of the blankets.
Everything becomes a potential threat because it cannot be contextualized.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because understanding that the home is the ideal psychological environment is a great theory. But practically speaking, I have to push back on the actual logistics of trying to run a medical operation in a suburban house.
That is always the big question.
Right. The source outlines a massive volume of daily assistance required here. We are looking at strict medication reminders to ensure pills are taken exactly on schedule, one-on-one safety supervision, meal preparation, and assistance with activities of daily living.
The ADLs,
It's
yeah.
exactly the ADLs: bathing, dressing, toileting, grooming, mobility. Is it truly possible to replicate the safety of a specialized medical facility in a normal, everyday house?
It's a fair concern.
I mean, a facility has protocols, it has architectural safety built in, and it has a nursing station right down the hall. Doesn't in-home care present a massive risk of things falling through the cracks?
Well, the logistics of safety are usually the very first concern families have, and rightly so. But the source emphasizes a fundamental shift from a facility management mindset to a custom care plan mindset.
Okay, what does that look like in practice?
Care and Comfort highlights that their plans are tailored to each client's specific needs, preferences, and the exact stage of their memory loss, and they're evolving constantly. But to address your point about the nursing station, it comes down to the ratio of care.
The ratio.
Yeah. In a shared facility, care is fundamentally divided. Staff are managing multiple residents, responding to competing alarms, and juggling different behavioral crises simultaneously.
So the attention is fractured by design.
It has to be. The institutional model relies on centralized monitoring to manage a population. What this in-home model offers is undivided, one-on-one caregiver attention.
That makes a huge difference.
It does. The goal isn't to replicate the bustling clinical environment of a hospital ward. The goal is to provide dedicated supervision that a shared facility fundamentally struggles to offer.
Because you don't necessarily need a nursing station down the hall when the station is a trained professional sitting 3 feet away from the patient.
Exactly. That proximity ensures personalized safety routines, like medication schedules or mobility assistance, are meticulously followed without the distraction of a dozen other patients.
But, we should also acknowledge the reality of what this requires. The source material paints a picture of a highly effective model, but one-on-one, 247 dedicated care is incredibly resource-intensive.
Oh, absolutely. It's a premium approach.
Right. It requires a massive commitment of time, coordination, and finances. We are using it as a blueprint for optimal care, but the sheer logistical weight of having a dedicated professional constantly in the home is a massive undertaking for any family to organize and sustain.
It is a massive undertaking. And the complexity of that undertaking goes far beyond just scheduling shifts and dispensing medication. The physical safety and the daily chores are merely the baseline.
Which brings us to the next massive piece of the puzzle. Building that hyper-focused safety net creates an entirely new challenge.
Right, because the caregiver isn't just a security guard or a housekeeper.
Exactly. They have to constantly interact with someone whose reality is actively fracturing. The source heavily emphasizes that caregivers receive specialized training specifically for Alzheimer's and dementia.
They don't just complete tasks.
Right. They're experienced in responding to unique behaviors and specific communication needs across all stages of the disease, from a new diagnosis to advanced decline.
What's fascinating here is how that specialized training fundamentally elevates the role. They transition from being a domestic helper to becoming a vital emotional anchor.
Yeah, the gap between basic care and specialized care seems almost unbridgeable. Doing someone's laundry, prepping a meal, or reminding them to take a pill, those are incredibly helpful domestic skills.
Sure.
But getting someone to take a bath when they're experiencing a severe cognitive disconnect and suddenly harbor a terrifying delusion that the water is dangerous, that requires a completely different skill set.
It requires the ability to de-escalate without invalidating the patient's reality.
How do they do that?
Well, a common symptom of dementia is sundowning, where anxiety and confusion spike in the late afternoon.
Right, I've heard of that.
Yeah. So a patient might see a normal shadow in the hallway and become convinced there is an intruder. A domestic helper might argue with them, turning on the lights and insisting no one is there.
Which probably makes it worse.
Oh, it does. It only escalates the patient's panic because their reality is being denied. But a caregiver with specialized dementia training knows to validate the fear, calmly agree to secure the area, and subtly redirect the patient's attention to a soothing activity.
Wow.
They step into the confusion and offer a steady, reassuring presence that actually makes sense to the patient in that specific moment.
So they learn to speak the language of the disease rather than forcing the patient to speak the language of reality.
Exactly.
And that specialized interaction extends outside the house, too. The source mentions they handle transportation and errands, getting patients to medical appointments, to therapies, or even to familiar community spots.
Which is huge for their quality of life.
Right. At first glance, taking someone to a grocery store just sounds like running an errand. But in the context of dementia, it feels like a targeted clinical intervention to preserve their identity.
Dementia can easily strip away a person's world, confining them to a single room out of sheer logistical fear.
Yeah, families are just terrified.
Families often stop taking their loved ones out because the risk of a public behavioral episode or a wandering incident is just too high. By having a trained professional who can safely navigate the outside world with them, the patient gets to maintain a thread to their past.
That is so important.
They can visit a favorite park or a familiar bakery they've gone to for 20 years while being guided by someone who truly understands the complexities of their journey and can manage any anxiety that arises.
It preserves the person they are, not just the patient they have become. But, care like this does not happen in a vacuum. It fundamentally alters the entire ecosystem of the family.
It absolutely does.
The source material explicitly addresses this by utilizing what they call a family-centered approach. They position the service as an extension of the family's care team, keeping loved ones involved and informed while offering respite, peace of mind, and caregiver support.
This raises an important question for families sitting in the trenches of cognitive decline. How do you actually know when it is time to bring in this level of professional help?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because the decline is rarely a sudden cliff. It is a long, slow slope.
And because it is so gradual, you keep adjusting to a new normal. You don't notice how much weight you are carrying until you are completely burnt out. It's like living in a house with a shifting foundation.
That is a perfect analogy.
You don't realize the entire structure is leaning day by day. One day you just notice the front door won't close anymore, and suddenly you have a catastrophic structural failure on your hands. A spouse or an adult child will quietly compensate for the decline, unplugging the stove because of a forgotten pot, hiding the car keys.
Sleeping lightly to listen for footsteps at night.
Exactly, until the caregiver's own health collapses.
That shifting foundation is exactly why the free in-home assessment mentioned in the source is the critical first step. It removes the emotional guesswork.
Because it's hard to be objective.
When you are the spouse of the adult child, you are often blinded by love, denial, or sheer exhaustion. You might not see that the throw rug in the hallway is a severe fall hazard,
Right.
or that the way you are quickly correcting your loved one's memory lapses is unintentionally spiking their daily anxiety. You are simply too close to the structural damage to evaluate it objectively.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? The assessment brings in an objective, trained professional to evaluate the safety risks of the environment and the harsh realities of the care required.
It allows the family to make informed decisions before a crisis forces their hand.
Like a fractured hip from a fall or a dangerous wandering incident. Based on the source, these in-home services are designed just as much for the family's survival as they are for the patient's health.
Without a doubt.
It gives the family permission to step back from being a 247 medical supervisor and go back to being a daughter, a son, or a spouse. You get to reclaim your relationship while the professional handles the heavy lifting of the disease.
It is a holistic approach to a condition that consumes everyone it touches. The disease steals the memory, but the care model attempts to protect the dignity and the relationships that remain.
We have covered a massive amount of ground exploring this blueprint today. If we are distilling the big takeaways from Care and Comfort's model, it comes down to a few core insights.
Let's hear them.
First, the familiar home environment is a potent clinical tool. By leveraging passive procedural memory, the walls and hallways of a known home actively reduce a patient's anxiety and disorientation in a way an unfamiliar facility simply cannot.
Absolutely.
Second, highly trained, one-on-one care provides a level of customized, evolving safety. It relies on specialized human interaction, like de-escalation, validation, and emotional anchoring, rather than institutional architecture.
And finally, this model acknowledges that dementia is a family disease, requiring professional intervention to prevent the family's foundation from collapsing under the weight of 247 care.
And while it requires significant resources, understanding the mechanics of this model gives families a clearer picture of what comprehensive memory care actually entails.
It gives them a real roadmap.
So if you are listening to this and you are in the Santa Clara County area, spanning anywhere from San Jose down to Los Gatos, Cupertino, or Willow Glen, and you are recognizing the signs of that shifting foundation in your own family, our source material offers a direct starting point.
They do.
Care and Comfort, LLC, provides that free, no-obligation in-home assessment we discussed. It is crucial to look for fully licensed organizations when navigating this, and they operate under a licensed structure. Their license number is 43470000220.
It's always good to verify that.
Definitely. And they also serve Campbell, Saratoga, Almaden Valley, and Cambrian Park. Their office is at 1900 Camden Ave, Suite 2059 in San Jose, California, 95124. If you want to get an objective pair of eyes on your family's situation, you can reach out to them directly.
Before a crisis hits.
Exactly. Their phone number is 408-242-6344, or you can email them at careandcomfortstad@gmail.com to start the conversation.
Taking that first step to invite an outside professional into your home is often the most difficult hurdle for a family to overcome, but it is the necessary catalyst for reclaiming stability.
We always like to leave you with a final thought, something to ponder long after this deep dive ends. We spent a lot of time today exploring the profound power of our physical environment.
It really did.
We talked about how the home acts as an external hard drive, providing passive memory support for someone whose internal cognitive map is failing.
Right.
But it makes you wonder about the broader implications for all of us, even before cognitive decline enters the picture. If our physical environment holds so many of our internal cues, acting as an invisible scaffolding for our daily habits and peace of mind, how much of our actual long-term cognitive stability is secretly tied to the walls, the furniture, and the familiar layout of the homes we choose to live in?
That is a fascinating question.
It is something to think about the next time you put your key in the lock and walk through your own front door. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.